Welcome to Module 4. In this module, we'll dive into why you should be using Google Forms in your classroom. I love Google Forms because I can use them to create quick checks and assessments for my students. I can easily collect data from other teachers and parents, and I can use them when I have a substitute and I still want to leave meaningful plans. Now, I can share these forms so other colleagues can use them, or we can work on creating them together from our own computers in different classrooms. Now, what's really great about Google Forms is that the assessments and activities that you create for your students can grade themselves. That's right, grade themselves. Then these grades and data get automatically organized into spreadsheets and graphs for you, and the grades can be imported directly into Google Classroom. Not to mention, there's no paper to keep track of, and you can easily see who hasn't completed their work yet. All right, well, before I go on continuing to explain how great they are, I thought I'd show you 11 of the ways they can be used in your classroom. So let's take a look. The first way Google Forms can be used is as an assessment for your students. In my class, I created this assessment for students to complete after they learned about rural, suburban, and urban communities. When my students get this form, they'll simply scroll through it, answering their questions, and at the end, they'll submit it. And because I included an answer key when I made this form, it'll automatically be graded instantly. Now you can see that you can create multiple choice questions. You can even include images in your Google form. And again, as soon as they submit at the bottom, you'll have all of their answers. Another way to use Google Forms is as an exit ticket. Now this form is set up a little differently. In the last example, I had students continuously scroll down the page. But if you want to break your assessments or your exit tickets into smaller sections, maybe even just one question on a page, you can do that. So if I type in my name here and I answer the questions below, you see that I've inserted an image here and the questions below are about that image. I can select the answers, and this time at the bottom, I can click Next. There are 2 more questions to answer, and then my students can submit. A great way to use Google Forms is when you have a substitute. There is nothing worse than getting sick and realizing that you have to go into your classroom to create your plans, make copies. It's terrible. What you can do with Google Forms is you can create this at your house. In this activity, I have students watching a video, so I created this form by inserting a video, and then I listed some questions underneath the video that they're going to answer based on what they learned from watching. Another way to use Google Forms is to keep track of your students' reading by creating a reading log. So in this example, they'll put their name, they'll type the date, and then they'll list the book and the pages that they read from and the reading strategy that they were working on. At the bottom, they'll click Submit, and again, I will instantly have this information. One of my favorite ways to start the day is to check in with my students. In the mornings, my students would answer a few short questions about how they're doing today. They would put their name, they'd answer how they're feeling, if they had breakfast, and then I add in a question about their homework. After they click Submit, I can look at their responses and see who needs a little extra care that morning. Another way to use Google Forms is to collect data. In this example, I'm collecting data from all of my students so that we can graph it in our graphing unit. Students would click the subject in school that's their favorite, and then they submit it. Now I want to show you what your data will look like. When you look at your responses, Google Forms will automatically put your responses in a chart form here. Then to see all of your responses in a spreadsheet, you'll click this green icon in the upper right-hand corner, and you can view your responses in a spreadsheet. I can also click the Explore button in the bottom right-hand corner. I can drag over this graph, and now my students and I can see exactly how their data has been graphed. Google Forms is also great for creating rubrics. So what I can do is have a student's piece of writing right next to me and fill in this linear scale for each part that I'm looking at. I'd put their name in the first blank, and then I would decide how they did on each of these elements. I can also include comments as well. What's really great is Google Forms is going to create that spreadsheet for me, so I can look at how all of my students did on including a hook. If I see that a lot of them have 2s or 1s, I know that that's going to be something that I need to reteach. Google Forms is not just for use with your students. You can also use Google Forms to collect data between you and your colleagues. So this form I created, and I emailed it out to my grade level teachers. I wanted to get their input on a new field trip that we had just taken. And it's a lot easier not to have to get together during lunch or after school, and instead just create this form, email it to them, and then I can look over all of their responses and see if there's something that we need to change for the next year. Google Forms is also amazing for collecting parent information. What I do is I project a link or a QR code, and when parents walk in to back to school night, they just go to that link, they start filling out this information right on their phone, and then by the end of the night, I have everything I need from them in spreadsheet form. You can also use Google Form as an RSVP. So let's say you're having a family night. This is an example of a family science night. I would send this out to my parents to see about how many people are attending so that I can be prepared. I would email this out to them. They just click their answer and they click submit. Lastly, I've created a parent year-end survey. This is a place where parents can give me feedback so that I can improve for next year. And you can see that I've included many types of questions in these Google Forms. I've included linear scale questions, short answer, multiple choice. There's options for check boxes. There are so many different options that you can use. Now, these are just some of the ways that you can use Google Forms. The list goes on. You can create Google Forms for your morning work each morning. You can create timed fact tests for addition, subtraction, multiplication. You can use them for student reflections about a topic, behavior logs, and even test prep. Continue watching the next videos to learn how you can start creating your own forms for your classroom.